Shadow of the Tomb Raider is the latest of the modern Tomb Raider games. Lately it's become more popular to change beloved characters and make them look more realistic and modern. Contrary to what some thinks, I actually welcome that. Think of the Resident Evil 2 remake for example. Claire and Leon look really nice there. Looking at Lara Croft, I think changing her into a modern, strong female protagonist was the move that saved the franchise. But it goes beyond that. It revitalized it so significantly that it now stands far above its predecessors. Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and now Shadow of the Tomb Raider are no longer boring games revolving around a bimbo protagonist who fires at dinosaurs. They feature good stories and, with the latest game, even have a great antagonist. I remember how we used to all be infatuated with Lara's boobs back in the day and how everyone was trying different things in hopes of activating the secret nude cheats, which by the way never existed, but the rumors spread like wildfire anyway. We were teenagers and there wasn't much to play anyway. Don't get me wrong, the modern Lara is still hot. As a matter of fact, I find her much more attractive than her older version, but that is due to a mix of excellent voice acting, attractive appearance, a great character, and an unapologetic tendency to kill everyone and anything that dares threaten her. She is now the full package, and it seems that each new game gets better and better at that. From a technical perspective, there's hardly anything anyone can complain about. The game supports Ultrawide without any issues. It features HDR and even some rudimentary ray tracing. While I don't have a graphics card that supports it, I watched a few YouTube videos and must say that I'm not impressed with how this was implemented. Still, a cool thing to have, and especially for those guys who have the graphics cards which can render ray tracing at more than 5 FPS. I hadn't had any bugs for the duration of my whole playthrough except for this one time that the game crashed. Close to the end as a matter of fact. And it would have not been such a big issue had it not corrupted my save file. Luckily the game creates several ones and I had barely lost 10 to 15 minutes of my playtime, but this could have been a disaster and at first I was kind of worried. It might have been a freak accident, but I can't ignore it, I have to mention it. Nothing else ever happened, but this one time it would have been so bad that it could have, not mattered that everything else was stable. But as I said, multiple saves were automatically made, so it was good. If you want to enjoy some nice effects, you better have a decent GPU or you will be playing at 25 frames per second. For some reason, DirectX 12 was way too heavy on my GPU while recording with OBS, so I had to switch to DirectX 11 in order to be able to record at any decent frame rates. The game still looks just as good as before, so I don't really get what was up there, but I'm mentioning it anyway if anyone wants to capture footage from the game. Now let's talk about the story. As before, the plot is science fiction, but still engaging. I will only give you a very short version of the story because I don't want to ruin the pleasure of experiencing it yourself. The game marks the conclusion of Lara Croft's origin story. By stealing an artifact, she triggers a Mayan apocalypse. Now, it's up to her to master a deadly jungle, overcome terrifying tombs, and persevere through her darkest hour. As she races to save the world, she ultimately becomes the Tomb Raider she was always destined to be. There's a lot more to it, but I just love the bombastic presentation of it all. The game is not afraid to go big, trust me. You literally run through a city that is falling apart during an apocalyptic event. And the thing that elevates this game above all the others is the presence of an excellent antagonist, as I have mentioned before. I have a weak spot for antagonists who do the wrong thing for the right reasons, if you get what I mean. All you have to do is shift your perspective slightly and you can easily see how that guy is the good guy and everyone else is suddenly bad. It's ultimately true that you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs, and that's kind of the situation here. The game features several locations which are somewhat logically connected, although each map is an individual one. They come with many side missions which are fun to do, there are lots of secrets to find, and of course a bunch of optional tombs to explore. You can currently get the definitive edition for under $60 and it includes all of the DLC, which makes it a must-have. In my opinion, it's the only way to experience the game to its fullest and well worth its money. The game has retained its gameplay features and added some of them. Now you can rappel down with your rope, adding for even more climbing options. The RPG elements have been expanded on, you unlock skills, but you can also change your outfits now, which comes with different stat bonuses. It's not deep, but it makes for a more engaging experience. At first I was kind of worried that it would be an unnecessary addition, but it ultimately works well without being annoying. In the end, I really mostly picked up outfits that looked best on her rather than the ones for the stats, but that's just me. That's what I did in Dark Souls 2. You can also upgrade your weapons, which affects their appearance and performance. The game has puzzles, especially in the tombs, and I must say that those are really well made. There wasn't a single time when I had to look online for a solution to them. I consider myself averagely intelligent, which means that most people will be able to solve them without needing help or getting frustrated. Another thing I really like was the fact that you can adapt the difficulty to your individual preferences. You can set the difficulty for combat, puzzles, and exploration individually. Another cool feature is the the option to make the locals speak in their native languages. Then you can read the subtitles and figure out what they're saying. Or you can have them speaking English with weird accents, which I switched to in the end. The only drawback to the whole thing where they speak their native languages is that Lara seems to be a polyglot and has no problem understanding anyone while also responding in normal English. I would have liked for her to switch as well once you do it. It would have been funny to listen to the voice actress's bad accent while trying to read those phrases, but unfortunately that wasn't in the cards. And not to mention that it would have been more realistic. It's not like anyone can speak many languages perfectly. It's not something that I would blame her for. Being able to communicate with these people is impressive enough. We still have the occasional QuickTime events, but those are implemented okay, so I never got annoyed by them. There were a few moments that broke the immersion though. For example, Lara goes to several different villages. Those are all very poor, and yet you are encouraged to steal anything you can from the people's huts. It's even funnier that they see you doing it and just accept their bad fortune. I guess Lara isn't above petty theft, although she's effectively a millionaire. Another annoying thing I noticed was that Lara seemed to not know how to dive into water. She would clumsily jump into it, which was strange. So I had to Google it and found out there is a combination of keys which forces her to make a proper swan dive. Why this is never explained is beyond me. As I was Googling it, I noticed that others have asked the same question on numerous occasions, so I was clearly not the only one who, for example, missed it somewhere. Something that I found to be very annoying was the fact that you can find places while exploring which clearly look like entrances to some hidden areas, but Lara can't seem to interact with them. I figured that those are probably related to the story or side quests, and ultimately was right. Once the correct quest was taken, suddenly interacting with these places was no problem. That seems like a bit of a lame way to do it though. At least have Lara comment on it. A simple phrase like, "I better don't go in there for now, but I have a feeling this place might hold some kind of significance in the future," would have gone a long way, and this is not far-fetched at all. When you enter a tomb, oftentimes the path to its exit will be along the way where you walk. So if you take the wrong turn and start walking out of the tomb, Lara would say something like, "This must be the path outside, good to know," and inform you that this is not the right way for you to go. It's a subtle way for her to tell the player, "Turn around, you're going the wrong way." And I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out if I'm doing something wrong with these places that look like I should be able to interact with them but couldn't. It just looked like entrances, just like any others. And the problem is that you feel like this should be interactable, you recognize it, and there are some times when you have a puzzle behind it, when you are missing something and need to do something before you can enter a place. So it forces you, as someone who has now been playing this game and had such situations, to look around and see if that is the case. So you waste time. It could have been solved easily. Lara will also interact with and generally see a lot more NPCs than in other games. She walks around in populated areas, and I really appreciate that, but that comes at a price as well. You quickly notice how often the NPCs repeat. It's especially noticeable when one NPC gives you a side quest and then another NPC, which looks exactly like the previous one, gives you a different quest. Climbing is obviously a major part of this game. Lara will almost never have solid ground to walk on, so most paths are vertical. While she is no Ezio Auditore, she's still impressive at it and seems to have impressive mental fortitude too. The climbing can be inconsistent and you will die more than once simply because the camera angle switched and your command was interpreted differently. The checkpoints are mostly fair, so it's not too bad, but it can be frustrating at times, simply due to the fact that you have the feeling that the game is ignoring your orders. There's one upside to this though. You get to see all the brutal deaths that Lara succumbs to. It's shocking but also impressive how much work is put into it. I genuinely felt shocked at some of them. It definitely makes you want to do better next time, if only for the protagonist's sake. At times you will find relics and other objects of interest. When looking at them, there will be a text with description of what the item is, or simply the content of a letter, etc. Lara will always read those out loud for the player. This means no reading while still being fed interesting facts about the lore. I don't know about you guys, but I hate having to read logs, texts, and other informations that are very long in games, simply because I want to play the game and not read. If I want to read, I'll take a book. Having Lara's voice actress read everything out loud is a huge plus in my eyes. I did mention how you have different locations throughout which the story takes you. As it progresses, several new side quests will appear in different places. In order to know this, you have to take a look at the map and then go to the specific location to acquire the new quests. That same map is what I want to criticize next. It's hard to figure out where to go, and at times very hard to find locations you have already been to. So pretty much the two main things you would expect a map to do well, it does not. Let's talk about the game's combat. You can hunt animals and humans in this game. The first thing is straightforward: find, kill, overall skin. Obviously stealth is advisable here, although there are a few animal boss fights which are not bad at all, and obviously stealth won't be an option there. Then there's a human hunting aspect of the game. This is where the stealth really shines. If you play it right, you can actually clear most fighting sections without your prey even realizing you were there. On occasions you will be forced into open combat, but stealth is where it's really at. Lara is just as proficient with a bow as she is with a knife or a rifle, so fighting is quite enjoyable in this game. This is where upgrading your weapons is really going to matter though, especially on the higher difficulties, because your enemies can be very accurate at times. Sometimes you take one shot in the pumpkin and that's it, you're dead. And on a side note, I would also like to mention that Lara actually swears when in trouble, which makes her seem even more real. All in all, the devs have done a good job at making her relatable. The game is long, and if you also do the side quests and challenge tombs, it's even longer. Anyone who has played a modern Tomb Raider game and enjoyed it will have a great time with this title. I can recommend this game without any reservations, and that is not often the case. It's simply a good game through and through, with a decent story, a great protagonist, a very good antagonist, and the devs have improved on almost every aspect of the game with this new alteration. So it seems like you've stayed until the end of this review, but let me quickly point towards the Patreon link in the description of it. It's where I publish links to free games, so you should definitely check it out from time to time. Of course, I would also like to thank you for watching this video and hope that it was entertaining and informative. Have a great day.